Jungkook was a man who built an empire from the ground up. At just 30, he was the CEO of John Enterprises, a billion-dollar corporation dominating the luxury fashion industry. Ruthless in business and guarded in love, Jungkook had no patience for distractions, especially not in the form of love. But then, there was Kim Taehyung, his secretary. Taehyung had been working for Jungkook for 3 years, and in that time, he had seen every side of him: his sharp intellect, his relentless ambition, and even his rare moments of vulnerability when he thought no one was watching. Taehyung was the only one who could keep up with his demands, the only one who could read him without words. Jungkook would never admit it, but Taehyung wasn't just his secretary, he was his anchor. But what neither of them expected was that fate had other plans. It started with a high-stakes business deal. A multi-billion-dollar merger that required long hours, late nights, and absolute focus. "Stay back tonight," Jungkook had told him. "I need you to finalize the reports." Taehyung had nodded as he always did, ignoring the way his heart skipped a beat. By midnight, the tension in the office had changed. Jungkook was no longer just the cold CEO, and Taehyung was no longer just the professional secretary. There was something in the air, something neither of them could deny anymore. "You work too hard," Taehyung murmured, placing a cup of coffee beside him. Jungkook smirked. "And yet you're still here?" Their hands brushed. A slow-burning fire ignited between them, and before they could stop themselves, Jungkook was pulling Taehyung closer, capturing his lips in a kiss that had been years in the making. Taehyung felt the shivers going down his spine. That night, everything changed. Their feelings no more kept hidden while they were alone. Their relationship remained a secret. In the office, they were still CEO and secretary. But behind closed doors, Jungkook was different. He was possessive, overprotective. Taehyung found it endearing, until the jealousy started creeping in. It began subtly. A client would compliment Taehyung, and Jungkook's eyes would darken. A colleague would laugh a little too much at something Taehyung said, and Jungkook would tighten his grip on his waist when they were alone. Then the gifts started arriving. Anonymous letters. Luxurious watches. Bouquets of roses left on Taehyung's desk. "Who the hell is sending you these?" Jungkook demanded one evening, his jaw clenched. Taehyung frowned, confused. "I don't know." Jungkook's jealousy was undeniable. "If I find out who it is, they're done." But what neither of them realized was that someone was orchestrating all of this, someone who wanted to drive a wedge between them. One morning, Taehyung arrived at the office to hushed whispers. "Did you see the pictures?" one employee whispered. Taehyung frowned. "What pictures?" Then he saw them, photos of Jungkook at a restaurant, his hand resting on the thigh of a stunning woman. His heart stopped. The woman was Min Jae-woo, an heiress known for her connections in the business world. Taehyung felt sick. Had he been a fool to believe Jungkook was his? Meanwhile, Jungkook was furious. Because while Taehyung was seeing those pictures, he was seeing a different set of images. Photos of Taehyung entering a hotel with another man. "Who is he?" Jungkook demanded when Taehyung walked into his office. Taehyung scoffed. "Are you serious right now? Who the hell is Jae-woo? Don't change the subject." "Who was that man? You think I would cheat on you?" Taehyung's voice cracked. "Jungkook, I saw the pictures. You were touching her." Jungkook's anger wavered for a second. "It's not what it looks like." "Then neither are mine." The argument spiraled. Accusations flew. The trust they had built crumbled. By the end of the night, Taehyung left, slamming the door behind him. Neither of them realized they had both been played. The real culprit? Park Bo-gum, Jungkook's biggest rival. Bo-gum had bribed an employee to create fake photos. He had orchestrated the mysterious gifts. He had planted the seeds of doubt. Because he knew one thing. The only way to destroy Jungkook John was to take away what mattered most to him, Taehyung. And it worked. Taehyung resigned the next day. Jungkook let him go. But he regretted it every second after. Jungkook never begged. He never chased after anyone. But for Taehyung? He broke every rule. Outside Taehyung's apartment, Jungkook stood in the cold, his fists clenching and unclenching as he knocked on Taehyung's door for the 3rd time that night. "Taehyung, open the door. Please." Silence. He knew Taehyung was inside. The lights were on, and he could hear faint movement. But the door never opened. Fine, Jungkook muttered bitterly, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll wait. He stayed outside for hours. But Taehyung never came. Jungkook knew Taehyung's habits. Every morning, he went to a small cafe before work. So Jungkook was there, waiting. When Taehyung walked in, their eyes met for a fleeting second before Taehyung turned around and left. Taehyung. Jungkook followed him outside, grabbing his wrist. Please, just listen to me. Let go of me, Jungkook, Taehyung said coldly. His voice lacked the warmth it once had, and it cut deeper than any betrayal. I don't want to see you. Jungkook's grip loosened. Taehyung walked away. Jungkook stood there, frozen, as the realization hit him like a truck. Taehyung wasn't just angry. He was hurt. And worse, he was done with him. When Jungkook returned to John Enterprises, everyone noticed the change. The once composed, strategic CEO had turned into a raging storm. Meetings were held in tense silence, his executives too afraid to speak up. Employees who made even the smallest mistake were fired on the spot. Is he always this bad? A new intern whispered. One of the senior managers sighed. Oh. But something happened and now he's like this? His secretary tried to calm him down. Sir, your next meeting is? Cancel it, Jungkook snapped, eyes dark. Cancel everything. For the first time in his life, Jungkook didn't care about his business. All he wanted was Taehyung back. And it was driving him insane. Jungkook wasn't the type to sit back and let people manipulate him. If Taehyung refused to see him, then fine. But he would get to the bottom of this. So he hired one of the best private investigators in the country, a man named Choi Sung-chul. Find out who faked those photos, Jungkook ordered, his voice cold and dangerous. Find out who set up Taehyung and me. I want names, locations, and proof. Sung-chul smirked. Give me 48 hours. Jungkook had no patience. Every second without Taehyung felt like hell. But he knew better than to act without solid proof. And just as promised, 48 hours later, Sung-chul walked into Jungkook's office with a file. You're not going to like this, Sung-chul said, tossing the folder onto Jungkook's desk. Jungkook opened it, his blood running cold at the name he saw. Park Bogum. A man Jungkook had once called a friend. A man who had been silently obsessed with Taehyung for years. Jungkook's hands trembled as he flipped through the photos and documents. Emails between Bogum and a hacker, planning how to manipulate the photos. Money transfers to a photographer who had followed Taehyung and staged the fake hotel pictures. A recorded phone call where Bogum was laughing, saying, if I can't have Taehyung, Jungkook won't have him either. Jungkook saw red. His so-called friend had orchestrated everything. The fake photos. The staged meetings. The whispers of lies. All because he wanted Taehyung. And worst of all, Jungkook had fallen for it. Jungkook wasn't just a CEO. He was a businessman, and businessmen knew how to destroy people without leaving a trace. Jungkook had his PR team leak a scandal about Bogum's shady business dealings. Suddenly, every investor, every contact Bogum had in the industry, was pulling away. His reputation was in tatters. Jungkook gathered all the proof and sent it to the police. Forgery, defamation, hacking, bribery, Bogum was facing multiple charges. Jungkook confronted Bogum in person. Bogum was at a high-class restaurant, sipping on expensive wine, completely unaware of what was coming. Jungkook walked in, his presence commanding, his eyes burning with fury. Bogum's smirk faded. Jungkook slammed the photos onto the table. I know everything, you disgusting piece of shit. Bogum's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Shut up. Jungkook's voice was ice. I gave you my trust, and you used it to ruin the one person I love. And for what? Because you were obsessed with Taehyung? Bogum's fingers twitched. You don't deserve him. Jungkook laughed, but it was sharp and deadly. And you think you do? You think manipulating him, hurting him, and destroying his happiness makes you worthy of him? Bogum opened his mouth, but before he could say another word, security guards surrounded him. You might want to call your lawyer, Jungkook said, standing tall. Oh wait, You won't find one willing to defend you. I made sure of that. Bogum was dragged out of the restaurant, his reputation, career, and life completely shattered. Jungkook had won. But it still didn't fix the one thing that mattered, Taehyung. And now it was time to get him back. Jungkook had won against Park Bogum, but it felt hollow without Taehyung by his side. And then came the news that nearly shattered him. Taehyung was leaving the country. For Paris. Indefinitely. Jungkook had never felt this kind of panic before. Deals worth billions never made his hands tremble. Losing a business empire wouldn't even faze him. But losing Taehyung? That was unthinkable. He bolted out of his office, not even bothering to grab his coat, barking orders at his driver. To the airport. Now, traffic was brutal. But Jungkook didn't care. He would run to the airport if he had to. He wasn't going to lose Taehyung again. Incheon International Airport. Jungkook ran through the terminal, shoving past people, his heart hammering in his chest. Gate 14. That's where Taehyung was. Boarding his flight. Jungkook spotted him. Dressed in a coat, his luggage in hand, looking as heartbreakingly beautiful as ever. Taehyung. Taehyung froze. Slowly, he turned, his expression guarded. Jungkook didn't stop running. He grabbed Taehyung's wrist, breathing hard, desperate. Don't go, Jungkook pleaded, voice raw. Please, don't leave me. Taehyung swallowed, eyes flickering with pain and hesitation. You let me go once, Taehyung whispered. Why should I stay now? Jungkook's grip tightened. Because I was a fool. Because I let my jealousy and pride ruin the best thing that ever happened to me. Taehyung's lips parted, but he remained silent. Jungkook took a deep breath, his voice shaking. It was all a setup, Taehyung. Bogum did everything. The photos, the fake hotel scandal, the rumors. It was all a lie. Jungkook pulled out his phone, showing him everything. The investigation. The confessions. The proof that Taehyung had been innocent all along. I should have believed you, Jungkook's voice cracked. I should have fought for you. Instead, I let my fear of losing you push you away. A single tear slipped from Taehyung's eye. Jungkook reached for his hand, his voice barely a whisper now. I love you. Taehyung inhaled sharply. Jungkook's voice shook. I love you so much that it's killing me inside. And if you still want to leave, I won't stop you. Taehyung's fingers trembled in Jungkook's grip. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Taehyung glanced at the gate. Then at Jungkook. And then, he dropped his passport and luggage. Jungkook barely had time to react before Taehyung threw his arms around him, crashing their lips together in a desperate, emotion-filled kiss. Jungkook froze. Then he melted. Their kiss was messy, frantic, filled with everything they had lost and everything they had found again. When they finally pulled apart, Taehyung was smiling through his tears. You idiot, Taehyung whispered. I love you too. Jungkook let out a shaky laugh, holding him tighter. Then come back home with me. Taehyung nodded. And just like that, Jungkook won back the love of his life. 1 year later, Jungkook sat at his desk, typing an email, when Taehyung walked in. Except this time, he wasn't just Jungkook's secretary. He was Kim Taehyung, the new COO of John Enterprises. Jungkook smirked as Taehyung leaned over, kissing him right there in the office. You know we have a meeting, right? Jungkook murmured against his lips. Taehyung smirked. What are they gonna do? Fire me? Jungkook laughed, pulling him closer. Their love had been tested, torn apart. But in the end, they proved that nothing, not jealousy, lies, or betrayal, could break them. Because love, real love, was worth fighting for. The end.